Hey guys, Chris here from Carolot Farm. Thank you for joining us for part 2 of Sweetheart's asthma flare-up. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I have come to check on Sweetheart. She, along with the other minis, have all been turned out since breakfast time this morning. No one has had access to the barn and she is looking pretty good, you know. I don't see any additional saliva or, bubbles or foamy, frothy stuff. And when she lifts her head and I was up close listening to her breathe, I don't hear any more of the kind of that sloshing sound that I have heard before. So I do believe she is feeling a bit better this afternoon. And I have to wonder if it's just all this fresh air and absolutely no access to the stall or the hay. So next on my to-do list now today is to clean those stalls super duper well, get all of the old shaving and hay out, and kind of start fresh and take it from there. All of my work today is really in the hope of limiting Sweetheart's asthma flare-up symptoms. I am beginning to really suspect that the stall, along with the hay that we've been feeding in increased amounts because the horses have been eating it, I am beginning to think that that could be compounding her asthma issues. They seem to be going hand in hand with the timeline. We've also had a second heat wave in the last week or so, but it's much nicer now, and she's still having this flare-up. So it's either from last week's heat wave, or it is perhaps due to the hay and our bedding situation. So what I'm doing again is cleaning everything, and I will show you those steps. What I'm doing is really working to find a more holistic approach to how to support my mini with these breathing conditions. We're still not sure, to truly call it asthma or heaves or some other respiratory ailment, but we do know that it seems to be chronic and it seems to be flaring up worse so in the summer. And so I'm going to work to try to do as many things that I can within my power to kind of clean and purify her environment. It's hard to believe. A week ago, I was concerned about Sweetheart getting too much grass. And that was my primary concern. And I was beginning to limit the amount of grass that she was getting. Certainly, limiting the grazing on like the premium turnout that we have. And here we are just a few days later, and now I'm wanting to permanently turn her out 24/7 because I don't want her to be hanging out in the stall. And so it's hard. It's like I feel like I'm ping-ponging all over the place, and I don't mean to seem wishy-washy, and I do apologize about that, but I think sometimes that is also just the way life is, and as we sort of adjust and readjust and try to figure out what our horses need, we have to be willing and able to kind of be flexible ourselves. And luckily, that heat wave we had has sort of dried up the grass. So that's good. The grass is not as lush as it was a week or two ago. And I do think that Sweetheart's increased weight has stopped. I don't feel like she's continuing to get heavier. So that's a good thing. We've cut her grain back to just a half a cup of grain, just enough to put her allergy medicine on. And now I'm kind of beginning to reevaluate, hey, do I need to start giving her pelleted hay versus, chopped hay or fresh hay? So these are all things that I'm trying to navigate and figure out. I want to share my journey with you though, because maybe you're like me. Maybe you're also trying to figure out what a more challenging horse needs when it comes to their metabolic, issues and respiratory issues. So I'm learning as I go, and I'm currently putting feelers out to friends and into the community to kind of see who has perhaps had a similar breathing issue with their horse, or who maybe has worked with a really wonderful vet that they know specializes in sort of airway treatments and asthma and all of these types of chronic issues. So again, I'm really trying to gather as much information and trying to get the names of specialists. So far, I seem to be kind of striking out. No one seems to really have any great aha, you must speak to this person. They know exactly what to do. So again, I'm lamenting a little and I'm venting a little, but I'm dedicated to trying to figure this out. I've also reached out to the rescue where I adopted my minis from, just to see if maybe they might have a specialist that they could point me towards. So again, I'll keep you posted. But today is day 3 of her 3rd flare-up. And luckily she does seem to be doing a little better, but I would not say that she's completely over this or that the medicine is working as well as it did the first time or two. So those are concerns I have, because although she seems stable, she seems to be relatively comfortable, I do know that she's still experiencing an increase in her labored breathing, and I can tell that just by that extra saliva that I'm seeing you know, in the mornings. And I think that's probably from having spent a lot of time standing in the stalls overnight. So again, I'm trying to limit that, and we'll see if that helps. I have just now finished stripping my 2nd stall because I did all of that removal of old shavings and inherently dust and debris and hay and such. It is a bit dusty in here, more so than usual because of all of that activity. And so I will not be bringing my horses back into these stalls for quite some time, probably not even for the rest of today. I really am going to try to transition them to just staying out in the fields and utilizing the back run-in as opposed to these front stalls. But if you have a horse like mine who does have a sensitive airway, just be really careful that you don't bring them back into a stall where all of that dust and debris has really been churned up, because that could certainly spike an asthma flare-up and cause them some real distress. So cleaning is great, but we just have to be mindful that in doing so, sometimes we do actually make matters worse until everything can really settle and air out. I did buy new shavings, but I am not going to put them in today. I'm going to let my stalls air out and finish drying, and then, you know, I will continue to think about shavings. I have them for if and when I need them, but I might forego them for a while. Thankfully, this current week is going to be a cooler week. I think our temperature highs are, you know, approaching 80. It's not going to be a super hot week, which is wonderful. So it's a good time to kind of be doing this new transition. Snuggles is rolling out there in the field for the horses. And part of that is really making sure they have everything they need in these back 2 paddocks, being as they're not going to have access to the barnyard. Hi, shenanigans. And part of that means I need to get their salt block that sits here in the barnyard, and I need to bring this back to the back field. I'm also getting ready to scrub the gray trough really, really well. The horses had been preferring to drink out of the red trough, which sits in the barnyard, but because they're going to be in these back 2 fields, I want to make sure that gray one is in tip-top shape for them. So, hi, Shannon, you gonna help? Yeah, please. So that's what I'm up to now. You know, the stalls have been stripped, they need to rest, and now I want to make sure that the horses have everything they need at their disposal here in the back. My horses have only been without their salt block for just a few hours, and you can see how eager Shenanigans is to lick on it. I have the holder in my hand, and I'm gonna now go and set this over there by the trough. But my horses really, really do appreciate their salt mineral block, especially this summer. Normally, I would say this trough looks fine for now, and I would not bother scrubbing and refilling. However, since it's their primary water source, I do want it to be crystal clean, because we want to make sure that everyone comes and drinks plenty, being as it is still summertime. So I am now gonna scrub this guy out and fill her up. Nice and clean. Nice clean trough. They have their salt mineral block. You know, 3 of my 4 minis have very promptly come over to lick on the salt block. So definitely glad to have moved that out here for them. Caring for a horse with asthma is no easy thing, or some other, you know, breathing ailment. I can't even say assuredly if it's asthma or heaves or, you know, just what it is, but I do know that she is having these flare-ups and she is having labored breathing, and that is all being increased. Therefore, she is having more difficulty. And what I'm trying now really hard to do is figure out what are the triggers and how to best remediate some of these things that might be environmental, and how to really help clean everything so that we don't have as many factors to consider or triggers that could be causing the issue. So again, there's just so much that I'm trying to figure out, and a lot of it's trial and error, and that could take time. Sweetheart is looking good this afternoon. Her sides do not seem to be heaving too much. You know, her abdomen looks fairly quiet. I do not see signs of any sort of nasal discharge or additional saliva or bubbles. You know, she was kind of blowing those bubbles earlier. So I do think that she is feeling pretty good this afternoon, which is wonderful. I think it's probably about 3 or 4 o'clock right now. And I'm gonna just keep her out here in the open field and continue to monitor her. But the plan right now is to keep her out of the barn and to omit hay for the time being. She's getting that little grain in the morning, and we do still have plenty of grass to nibble on. So, you know, no bubbles, no drainage, none of that stuff right now. So she seems pretty content. She wants nothing to do with me right now. I can't blame her. I just went into the field to check on Sweetheart. It's about 5:30 in the evening. She's doing better. You know, she's been out here, turned out in the paddock ever since breakfast this morning. I do think that's really helping her situation. And so tonight I will plan to keep her out in the field all night long. No one will go into the barn tonight, and we'll see if she isn't better off in the morning. So again, we're gonna limit the stall, and we're going to limit the hay. Because we have enough grass out here right now, I'm not going to be giving the horses hay for the next couple of days, and we'll see if that helps to improve her asthma flare-up. Those are kind of 2 triggers that I am suspecting, so I'm gonna first take those out and see if we don't see an improvement. I'll let you know in the morning. I do wanna just share that when I say I'm not going to be giving the horses hay, it's only because I truly believe there's plenty for them to eat out in the fields. They do enjoy nibbling on the hay, but they enjoy doing so when they're in the stalls. So because they're not going to be in the stall hanging out, they're gonna be out in the field grazing, I really don't think that they're going to miss that hay. And again, it's just for a few days, just while we try to do this trial and error. And then if it looks like we need to reinstate the hay and I haven't yet figured it out, I might have to do some sort of, you know, removal of some horses here and there, you know, splitting them into different groups so that those that need the hay can have the hay. And for Sweetheart, if she can't eat the hay, maybe we need to move towards like a pelleted hay supplement or something. But again, I'm not there yet. We still have grass. It's just the middle of the summer. And I'm gonna first kind of try this, see how it works, and again, I'll cross that hay bridge when I get to it. It's now morning number 4 of this flare-up, and Sweetheart, I am happy to report, did not show signs of any additional saliva or mucus. Her nose is clean. There were no bubbles coming from her mouth. She's just now had her breakfast and her medicine, and everyone is back out to being turned out for the day, with access to the run-in, but no access to the stalls. So again, good report for day 4. You can see though, everyone is still wishing to come on into the barnyard. You know, we have changed their routine, and that can be a little tricky sometimes. So everyone is going to stay out in the back field with access to that side paddock. And I will plan to bring the little boys in later on today and give them a little hay. They could really benefit from it. Snuggles, her weight, and Sweetheart both look really good. Earlier this evening, I came out and I noticed that Sweetheart once again was forming those bubbles, and I could hear that there was a lot more fluid in her throat and her mouth. And after watching her for a couple of hours, I did decide to give her a little bit of Banamine just to help with that inflammation, to help her get a little more relief this evening. And I will call the vet first thing in the morning and have them out for a follow-up, because clearly we need to figure something out for this little girl. Our Dex and allergy meds that we've been using are just not cutting it right now. Today is day 5 of Sweetheart's most recent flare-up here. This morning when I came to check on her, she was a little bubbly at the mouth. I've seen worse, I've seen better. So, we fed her breakfast, gave her Dex as usual. She's now down to a slightly lower Dex level. It's 1 milliliters versus 1.5, just given the progression that was originally prescribed. I did, though, put a call into the vet, and I requested to sort of have a consult with their vet who most specializes in airway issues. And so tomorrow morning, I have a different vet coming out, same practice, and I've heard great things about her. She's actually come and spoken to our 4-H group before, so I'm really eager to have someone out who hopefully has a really good working understanding of what we're experiencing and how best to maybe go about treating it. Really, it's supporting it. I mean, it's a chronic condition, so it's not going to just go away, but we definitely need to find a way to give her a little more relief. I also asked, though, about giving Banamine, because last night my gut instinct kind of said to go ahead and give her some just to help with some of that inflammation. And the vet did get back to me, and she said that was a fine thing to give her. It's just a small, mini-sized dose. And so I will hold off and give her that this evening, just to give her a little more relief in the overnight hours, because it seems to be in the late evening, overnight, early morning is when we seem to have the most fluid and flare-up issues. So I will give her that right before dark tonight. Currently it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Her mouth seems to be clear. You can still see that her nostrils are flared a bit, and her abdomen is heaving some. That is also normal for her, but I do also recognize that she is still in the midst of a flare-up, and so everything is a little more pronounced than usual. But we'll have the vet out tomorrow morning, and hopefully we can get a new plan in place for this little girl, because it's been a long summer and a long 5 days so far. She does seem pretty peaceful this afternoon. I am very grateful for yet another cooler day with overcast skies. So the horses are all getting some nice relief. But I think that these cooler days are especially helping our little Sweetheart here. But they have not remedied her issues, so I cannot say that it's only caused by high heat and humidity. Look how broad she is. So again, we are thankful for the cooler days, though, all of us. I mentioned in a previous clip, I think, it's been, again, a whirlwind of a few days here, that I was going to put feelers out into our local community. I was going to reach out to the rescue as well as to just friends to see if anyone had any recommendations for a vet or a particular practice that really specializes in these equine airway issues. And I unfortunately kind of struck out. I mean, I got one lead from someone who had a client that had worked with a particular practice, but it wasn't necessarily clear. It wasn't really clear if they were truly specialists or just happened to work with this particular horse. So, that's why when I called my vet this morning, I just said, could you please put me in touch with your whoever in your practice, most specializes in these areas. And so that's what I have coming out tomorrow. I don't know. I mean, I might have to continue to ask around, make phone calls, and kind of see. One question I have for the vet tomorrow is, does she know of anyone else who really specializes in these airway issues? And is there someone else or somewhere else that I could take this little mare if it looks like we're not able to really get on top of this? So again, I have more questions than answers, but tomorrow I am looking forward to speaking to someone new and to really begin to kind of pick their brain and share with them all of the things we've tried and to see if they have other suggestions. If you would like to continue to follow along with Sweetheart's Asthma Flare-Up, please see Part 3 and Part 4.